Welcome to the HR Legals and Compliance Training in Reopening. Fáilte Ireland have prepared 3 videos to support you in your HR training for reopening and operations. They are New Staff Induction and Fast Tracking Skills Development, Managing Teams and Optimising Performance for Reopening, HR Legals and Compliance Training for Reopening. Each video is accompanied with a suite of checklists for you to download and adapt for use within your own business. This is video 3, HR Legals and Compliance Training in Reopening. The key topics that we will cover are the backdrop, where are we now? Your legal obligations, onboarding and returning employees, key considerations, returning employees, key considerations, and challenges to consider ahead. So let's start and look at the backdrop of where are we now. So currently what we need to consider. COVID-19 backdrop is still here. And as we plan our reopening, we need to consider what implications that has for us. We're going to consider staff returning from layoff. We have a lot of new and seasonal staff starting with us at the moment. We have staff who may be on reduced or varied hours, either at their request or at ours. We may have some staff who are still availing of support from different schemes. We have staff who have new roles and we've identified new departments. We have customer expectations that are unknown, and we have changes in terms of the business structure. Here are some key considerations for you to consider as you reopen as a result of the backdrop. We're going to expect and accept that there will be general apprehension, both from our new staff, our returning staff, and our management team. We also expect some apprehension from our customers, so reassuring people that this is normal is really important. The safety and well-being of our team is going to be to the forefront, and reassuring our staff that we've taken all appropriate measures and we've done our risk assessment and considered all well-being activities that are required is really important. We're going to consider what are our customers' expectations and guide our staff in relation to standard operating procedures and prepare scripts to help them in relation to frequently asked questions that they may not be used to answering. We're going to try and instill as much morale and enthusiasm as we can in our team, which is so important as a key ingredient in the hospitality industry. There's going to be lots of change in general, and anticipating all of this is really important as we consider planning for our reopening. So now let's look at your legal obligations. And we know that as employers, we want to balance employee rights with doing what's right in line with business requirements. Our starting point is to ensure that all staff have received a copy of their terms and conditions of employment. All staff are required to receive them within the first 2 months of starting for new starters. And if you've made changes to employees' terms and conditions for those returning, you need to provide them with details of same. Remember, since the 1st of January 2021, the national minimum wage has increased to $10.20 per hour. This is equivalent to a 1% increase and is effective for all staff that are experienced adult workers. Also remember, if you apply a meal deduction, this hasn't changed, but you need to ensure that this is captured in the employee's terms and conditions of employment under the deductions clause in your contract. It's also important to note that under 18 rates also apply in line with this new national minimum wage. They are outlined here for you and outline that under 18s the rate is 7.14. If you're 18 years of age, it's 8.16, and 19 years of age, it's 9.18. Anybody who is over 20 is considered an experienced adult worker and is on 10.20. It's important to ensure that these rates are confirmed to your under 18s and are posted if employees who are under 18 work in your premises. Working time and breaks requirements is an important consideration also, and this is one of the areas that is typically audited if you get a WRC inspection. Remember, the maximum average hours any employee can work must not exceed 48 hours. This can be averaged over a specific reference period, but it can't exceed 48 hours over that period. Remember, employees may request to be put on a band of hours. If they request this after 12 months' service, you need to ensure you put them in the appropriate band in line with the legislation. Remember, all employees are entitled to 11 hours consecutive rest in any 24-hour period, and they're also entitled to get 24 consecutive hours rest in any 7 days. All employees are entitled to a 15-minute break after a 4.5-hour work period, and after 6 hours are entitled to a 30-minute break, which can include the first 15-minute break once there's no more of a gap of 4.5 hours. For under 18s, they have specific additional break requirements, and so it's really important that you post these if you have employees who are under 18 working in your premises. It's really important in relation to all these working hours that you keep the appropriate records to complement the breaks people receive and the rest breaks that they receive between shifts. This is the important obligation under the Organisation of Working Time. It's also important to remind you that we have a new code of practice in place since January in relation to bullying at work. This new code of practice offers cover and detail in relation to outlining what is bullying. It introduces a new process for you to follow, and it also clearly outlines what bullying is not. And this is an important obligation for all employees to ensure that they are aware of. It's also important as an employer to remember under your vicarious liability obligation, you need to ensure that you've communicated the policy proactively to ensure all employees are aware of the policy, the same as they have an obligation to follow it. I'd also like to update you in relation to updates for the parental leave. Before the 1st of September 2020, it was 22 weeks for each eligible child. And since the 1st of September 2020, that has increased to 26 weeks for each eligible child. You can take that for an employee who has a child up till the child's 12th birthday. And if the child has a disability or long term illness, you can take it when the child is up to 16 years of age. I'd also like to remind you that parents' leave has been extended by 3 weeks, which is in place from April 2021. 2 weeks will be paid by the Department of Social Protection, and this has to be taken within the first 52 weeks of the birth or adoption of the child. You require the employee to give you 6 weeks' notice of their intention to take this leave. In relation to statutory sick leave, there's no statutory rules in relation to operating a company sick pay scheme at the moment. In November 2020, however, the Department of Enterprise, Trade and Employment launched a public consultation process on the introduction of a statutory right to paid sick leave for all employees. That went undergone a consultation phase, and it looks to be imminent that this may change. There's also currently an enhanced benefit for COVID related sick leave. And remember, all the sick leave and reasons for sick leave are sensitive personal data in line with GDPR. So, next, the key area for you to think about is updating your policies and procedures. And most of these policies will already exist in your staff handbook, but it's important to revisit and update any that you feel may be necessary to do so. For example, your COVID 19 policy, your company property, intoxicants, well-being, remote working, the new code of conduct associated with bullying, your data protection and GDPR, your guest care, and your COVID operating procedures. So now we're going to move to onboarding and returning employees. The paper trail in HR is crucial, and with lots of new staff on board and returning, it's really timely to revisit your paper trail and your files in relation to your staff. These can be either on an electronic database or they can be hard copy files. Remember, you need to keep your recruitment details, any work permit information, details of employees who are under 18 and considered young persons, for employees under the age of 16, training confirmation in relation to the vast range of training that you're going to be completing, your induction checklist, your contract of employment that is signed, your handbook that is signed off, your probation as the person goes through the probationary process, any medical sick certs, any annual leave requests, any discipline or grievance process, any payroll details, and any protective leave details or confirmation. Remember, all information should be kept safe and secure in line with your data protection obligations and should only be retained for as long as is necessary. And it should only be used for the purpose that you've gathered it. So now let's look at our returning employees. It's really important as you select people for return, you must be able to show that you've applied your selection criteria in a reasonable and fair manner. This could be different for various departments, but it's really important that you can show you're applying fair, objective criteria if you have to make a selection decision. If all employees are returning, that's perfectly fine. You don't need a selection criteria then. It's also really important that you address refusal to return to work by asking the employee to confirm their reason for refusal and get that confirmed in writing by them. If you're changing employees' terms and conditions, it's important to try and tread carefully so that there aren't any problems ahead. So let's consider in relation to return to work. Really important we do our refresher training. Consider a shorter week and phased return to full hours for some staff who may not be in a position to return full time. And it's really important that we do engagement activation and start the engagement and training process as soon as possible. It's also important to remember the well-being initiatives to ensure we assist people to return as proactively as possible. So let's look at some of the selection criteria for return to work. Some employees may flag some health and safety considerations. It's important to remind staff in relation to all the precautions and measures that you've taken. You've done your risk assessment, you've updated your safety statement, and if employees flag individual concerns they may have, particularly linked to them or their job, we'll do an individual risk assessment directly in relation to that. It's important you keep the paper trail in relation to all of your health and safety considerations and the work you've done in this regard. There may also be employee obligations that present a challenge in relation to return to work. If employees have specific reasons why they can't return, we need to explore these with the employees and understand specifically what they are. Ideally, we need to try and come to a mutually agreeable date as to when they can return. We also may have employees who have annual leave accrued and are looking to plan holidays. Again, we need to do that in line with business requirements and also facilitate the employee's request as best we can. Remember, employees are required to give you notice of holidays, and if they are going abroad and there's an implication for quarantine, we need to take that into account as well. Finally, you may have flexible working requests, which again you need to consider in line with business requirements and also try and facilitate people in relation to it might be a short term request that they might need assistance with. So now let's look at the return and transition from PUP. So guidance in relation to transition, follow the correct process, which is to outline and consult early with the employee that you now have work available. Put any issues regarding return in writing and consider same. So ask the employee to confirm what exactly the issues are and then consider all of the requests. It's important to engage regarding other leave options also. For example, it may be necessary for them to consider parental leave, special leave, unpaid leave, etc., depending on what the reason for their need to remain out is. Explore other areas with the person and ensure you follow the process and engage in the paper trail throughout. And ideally, you're asking them to put in writing to you any issues they may have, and then you're considering it and reverting to them in writing. Obviously, to complement the discussion that you're having, because open communication can't be replaced by email communication, it should just be used to complement it. So, in your return to work plan, to summarize, give appropriate notice. Communicate, communicate, and communicate. Employees will always say they want more communication than what we give. Make sure you do your written follow up and make sure you consider team activities and training to help bond and re engage the employee with their team and with the business as they return. So now we're going to consider the challenges to consider ahead. There may be requests to travel abroad. There may be quarantine needs. Staff may return to work and have COVID cases or COVID symptoms to deal with. There may be new requests for different hours from us to them or for them to us. In relation to all these requests, the most important thing is that we consider all of the options, and rather than giving anything a blanket no, we ask the employee to put it in writing, consider it in line with business requirements, and revert to them. In relation to the COVID cases and symptoms, we remind people of their obligation and the hugely important obligation they have not to come to work if they have any symptoms or in contact with a close contact case. It's really important that overall we consider the amount of change and are really proactive in relation to stress management at this very exciting yet very stressful time for many. Fáilte Ireland have this resource available for all employees to assist with their well-being. So remind all your employees that this resource is available to all staff throughout the organisation, from managers right the way down to the new staff you're recruiting. There are employee supports available, but they need to be used appropriately. The PUP payment is only there for staff that have no work available. Job Seekers is there for people who have no work. Short-time working support is available for people whose hours are reduced. Enhanced illness benefit is there for people who have COVID symptoms or are considered a close contact. Remember to train your team very proactively and engage early in relation to their plans for return. Put your training and reintroduction to work in place now, and do lots of employee awareness and training as early as you can. There's lots of training opportunities available in terms of supporting you once you identified the training gap analysis. It's important to include compliance and management skills training, both for your new staff, for your returning staff, and supporting your management team. The Fáilte Ireland Hub is available to support you with a range of training. So please visit the Business Support Hub for the Welcome Back programme, which is a huge help to get your training underway. Finally, in relation to the vaccination rollout, this is an area that is very topical at the moment. Remember, under the Constitution, there is a fundamental personal right to bodily integrity. So while fundamental rights are not absolute and may be balanced against the common good, there is no indication that the government plans to legislate for mandatory vaccination. It's important you positively encourage your employees to avail of the vaccine and update your risk assessment for roles and individual needs. It's also important to follow the guidance in relation to the return to work protocol regarding antigen testing if you avail of antigen testing, which is not a requirement, but some businesses may decide they wish to use them. It's also important to be aware of the Employment Equality Acts, which provide for protection from discrimination on the 9 protected grounds, including disability and religion. The risk assessment is key to identify the need for the vaccination as outlined in the government return to work protocol. Customer service is magic in hospitality, and we definitely don't want to lose the magic due to the restrictions. Morale is so important, and appreciate that everybody is going to find it challenging but exciting to be back. Be patient and upskill your managers and staff to expect the unexpected, and enjoy, as we're all so excited to have the entire industry back. Please visit the Business Support Hub for the Welcome Back programme, where there's lots of resources, including this Welcome Back programme, to help you on your journey to return. The additional videos in the HR Training for Reopening and Operations Suite and all the other supporting checklists are located on this Fáilte Ireland Business Support Hub. I hope you found this video helpful, and I hope you find all the supporting information useful also. Thank you for watching.